Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to Plymouth Congregational Church Sunday Forum. We have a wonderful program set up for you today and we have a surprise. Our surprise this morning is that our presenters have brought us two beautiful books, The Land of the Dakota, which is a Dakota history. Hello? Sounds like we're on. Need to get a little closer to it. Okay, got it. I'll just raise the level of that up. Okay, so two beautiful books, and these will be available at the end of the presentation this morning, and I can award them in any way I choose. And so I'm currently saying that I'm going to award them to the two best questions that get asked during the Q&A, and that is totally subjective, and if there are too many questions, it may wind up being random. So at any rate, there is a whole stack of library books out here on the cart outside the door, and so feel free to that are all Native American related books from our collection, and our wonderful library staff has put that together for us this morning, and thank you very much. So please feel free to check those out on your way out. Also, Shishoka has brought a bunch of material, including his business card, some postcards, and some information about work that he does outside of Plymouth Church. And so if you want more information about any of his activities, there's material there available. He has also offered to lead a tour of sacred sites, and so if you're interested in that, there's a sign-up sheet over there, so please sign up for that. We don't have a date yet, so this isn't a commitment, but just if you're interested and we find that there's interest in that, then we'll proceed with that as well. All right, so with that, we can get going. Thank you so much. Welcome to our Sunday Forum this morning. Our presenters today are Jeff Hall and Shishoka Dutta, and they have both presented here before, known quantities to us, and so with that, I'm going to turn it over to them and let them get going. Thank you so much.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming today. It's so great to see all of you in person, and for those who are watching on the internet, welcome as well. I'm Jeff Hall. I joined the church in '92, I think just a couple weeks before I got married here in the church to Margaret Truesdell. And the Truesdells, I think my kids are maybe the 5th generation here at Plymouth Church. So a little bit of history there. Let's see, and you know, sometimes I think we might wonder, like, what happens in this Plymouth community, right? We talk about social justice and love and peace and economic justice and climate change and what comes of that, right? And we know there's some great outgrowths like Deacon creating affordable housing around the Twin Cities. And I think many of you might know that I was in the Peace Corps in West Africa in Sierra Leone, and we had the Sierra Leone-Plymouth partnership that worked with so many villages in Sierra Leone and now has become One Village Partners. And One Village Partners is working with 40 villages now and over 50,000 people in Sierra Leone, one of the poorest but most beautiful countries in the world. And then I think today we're talking about another of many, many things that come out of Plymouth, right? Sort of an outgrowth of the values that we all care about in trying to make the world a better place. So I think, to me, as I thought about it, it's kind of the context of this really came from Plymouth. So that's really important. This is the apartment building we built, and it's called Wakpata, and we're just gonna give you a story about how this came to be. And it all started with the Racial Justice Initiative that took the church through this amazing podcast called Seeing White. And can you raise your hand if you participated in that? And if you haven't, I urge you to see or to participate in this podcast. It's on, you can find it anywhere online or Spotify or whatever. It's, I think it's the best podcast I've listened to that talks about racial injustice and systemic racism. And the 5th episode, I was, we went through the George Floyd summer, and And then in March of 2021, I was on spring break. We had purchased this site. I'm a real estate developer, and my partner and I found this site down by the airport, by Fort Snelling, by Minnehaha Falls Park. And we were planning the building that we were going to develop there. And I was going through with Plymouth this podcast, and that week it was Little War on the Prairie about the U.S.-Dakota War. And that's history that I didn't know. And I realized that a lot of that podcast was talking about the area where we were building this building. And it really got me thinking as I was walking on the beach, right? Because you think about the world and the waves that continue to come no matter what happens in the world. And I said, I think we've got to meet some Dakota people and learn more about this and see if there's some ways we can work together. And the question in my mind was, okay, we're building a market rate apartment building, but it's in an area that's really important. And is there a way to bring racial equity or racial justice into this project somehow, right? Because those are two very different things. How do you bring them together? So here's the site location. You can see the park to the south there, the Fort Snelling National Park, and the Minnehaha Falls Park, and the airport just south of there. So you can see it's right in the middle of what the Dakota consider a sacred area. And Shoshoka, who's not only become a partner in our project, but a very close friend, is going to take you through this. And it's really important to know that this is Shoshoka and I did this together, right? So it was a real true partnership. And I know his family, he knows my family, we've become good friends, and to me it's been personally very enriching. And if it can do anything else community-wise, then that's great. But I thought Shoshoka might share just why this area is so important.
All right, good morning. Good to see all of you. So my name is Shoshoka Dutta, and it's been wonderful to work with Jeff on these different things. And so some of the different sites we have here are very important to the Dakota people historically and culturally. So we have where the apartment building is located by Minnehaha, which means waterfall in Dakota. So it's kind of like waterfalls falls. And Wakpa Chistana, or Wakpa, is like a creek. So you got the creek there too, Minnehaha Creek. And Dakota people have been using these areas for countless generations, And then Mini Owasni is Coldwater Springs, important cultural site to the Dakota people, because fresh water is very important. And so fresh water comes out there. It was drinkable. I'm not sure if it's drinkable now. I think there's a sign there that says you can't drink it. But, long ago, before we had indoor water and plumbing, you had to go haul water. I know my dad's always telling me stories about that. So we're lucky today. And so, living by a cold water spring like this was essential to life. And so it's a sacred site. There's other kind of cultural and spiritual things associated with that. And then, of course, as we go further, we got Fort Snelling, and what's that one below that? Pike Island, yep, okay. And then Bedote. Bedote is also important for culturally. It's in the Dakota creation story. And so if you go on the sacred sites tour, I'll tell you the story. It's a long story, so I don't have a lot of time to go through it. But then, of course, we have the Mississippi River, Wakpa, and Kapoja, which is one of the village sites of Dakota people, where you might have heard of Little Crow. That was his village site. So these are some important sites to the Dakota people.
Thank you, Shoshoka. Shoshoka is the main character in our story today, so you'll hear more about him as the story unfolds. And he was mentioning the Bodote, and that's where the Mississippi and the Minnesota rivers meet, where those two waters come together as a, I think, well, you'll have to come to the sacred site store to hear more about that. But it's the most important sacred site. So this is the question, right, that we were faced with. Can we bring racial equity to our project, or some racial benefit towards racial justice? So I didn't know any American Indians in my life. And I don't know if you guys find yourself in the same position, but just where I grew up, I didn't interact with American Indians, so I didn't know a Dakota person. So of course we couldn't proceed without getting not only buy-in, but total collaboration from Dakota people. This might not be a good idea. Are there ways we can do it appropriately or not? If we don't do it the right way, it could be more harmful. Four Sisters Farmers Market. I met the owner of that coffee shop. I talked to him about it. And of course, there's the All My Relations Gallery at the same spot. And that's a American Indian art gallery. So met folks there and just started meeting more and more American Indians, right? That's common sense, and they're amazing people and have diversity of ideas. But it's really fun to talk to them about to get their thoughts. And then there's a site in St. Paul near Mounds Boulevard called Wakan Teepee, and that's a sacred site that they're turning into a Dakota Educational Center. And they have an annual event called the Pollinator Festival, and they had a 5K, and we signed up to run the 5K. And as part of the Pollinator Festival, they have all these tables and stands and booths where you can learn about all the different American Indian activities around the Twin Cities. And that's where I met Shoshoka. And maybe you can talk about how we met and your first impression of this strange white man.
Yeah. I meet people all the time, and all different peoples throughout the Minnesota and the world. So, just meeting Jeff, who is somebody who's interested in learning about Dakota people, I think that's good. And I wish more people took the time to do that, because if we get to know each other and talk to each other, then we'll see, hey, this is a person, just like me. And maybe they have their own interests and spiritual beliefs and way of life, and it's just different, And as long as they're not trying to hurt anyone, then it's good to work together and see what kind of things we can do to make the world a better place. I was there to talk about the Dakota language, and at the time I was working for the University of Minnesota. I'm no longer at the U of M, but he was there asking questions about the language and stuff, and so then we started talking from there about this property I have, and so that's kind of how the relationship started, and I think it was good. It was good. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
It was super fun because I met Shishoka at the end and was just walking out and followed up with him, and then we just had so many great discussions, and he became such a critical partner and was so great and responsive and had so many good ideas. So it's been a real joy. So as he mentioned, he was a language instructor at the U of M. And so I said, wow, would you be a language consultant for our project if we all believe together that this is worthwhile to proceed? And he said, sure, let's keep talking about that. And so it slowly unfolded, right, as a partnership. And we talked to more and more people in the community to see if it's appropriate. And as we went through the naming process, we continued to get input from, as many people in the community as we could. The other person I was trying to meet, because she was in the news, was Angela Two Stars. She was doing a large installation at the Walker Sculpture Garden outside, and her opening was that October. But she also previously was involved in the Bade-Makaska, Dakota project, which is on the southeast part of that site where there used to be a Dakota village. If you haven't seen it, it's beautiful, but this is what it looks like along the walking path at Bade-Makaska. And this is Angela Two Stars' work. She did the sidewalk stamps that are right on the walkway. So as you walk around the lake, you see Dakota language and the symbols, and having the presence of their language is so important to them. And Shishoka can tell you more about why that's important, but there are very few native speakers left, and they're trying to, in the schools that we had, right, the assimilation schools, we were trying to wipe out American Indian culture and language, and so now we're trying to hold on to those. This is Angela Two Stars' opening in October. I'd emailed her and tried to call her, couldn't get a hold of her. Of course, she was very busy, so I went to her opening to try to meet her, and I got to meet her. And I took the important selfie to say, and she's like, oh, are you that guy who's been emailing me? And I said, yes. And she said, well, after this, I might have some time, and let's meet at the coffee shop. Is it Maria's on Franklin? And talk more about it. So we met and also started to build a great partnership with Shishoka and Angela Two Stars. And I wanted Shishoka to explain briefly how we came up with the name Wakpata. It's a long process over several months and back and forth, but I thought it'd be great if he could share his thoughts on that.
Naming something is difficult because, it has to stand the test of time. And also, you want to come up with the appropriate name. So when we started the process of thinking about what the name for this building would be, and Jeff and his partners, they wanted to use some Dakota language. And I think that's good because I've been to other parts of the world like where they use their people's language, like Hawaii. They use a Hawaiian language everywhere. And New Zealand and other native places where they incorporate the language into the signage, into the building names. And, it's good. I think that should be done more. And involving people in the native community too in this process. And so that was something that was done. And when we were thinking about the name, they came out with a list of a bunch of names, and the English names, I guess. And they're like, how do you say these all in Dakota? And when we were going through that process, it didn't feel authentic to me And Dakota, we have a specific way that we go about it, and I suppose you might appreciate it, but usually we begin by like praying first. And so that's something we did. And after that, the name came to us very quickly. So, and that's the name we used, was Wakbada, and meaning creek. And it's right by Minnehaha Creek. So I think it's a very appropriate name for this building.
That's a great process, and I thank you for that, because you were the key to that. So yeah, Wakpada means creek, and the other reason why water was important is because it's so important to the culture of the Dakota people. They say water is life. It's the source of life, and I mean, we all know that. So that's kind of the story of how we came to have Dakota culture, and it wasn't just the name. We wanted art, we wanted native landscaping around the building, and the native landscaping has, we have little name plates in English and Dakota. The different kinds of rooms in the building have different names, and they have an English name and a Dakota name. And Shishoka recorded the Dakota name on our website, so if you click on it, you can hear him say the word in Dakota. And we have an art plaza on the corner of the building, on the outside, the public corner. And Angela Two Stars did a sculpture and some sidewalk stamping in that corner. And she was an art consultant on the project and helped us get 3 or 4 other artists involved. But this is her sculpture, and there's a interpretive panel next to it that talks about the sacred sites in the area, so trying to educate people about why this building has a Dakota influence. And there's a scan where you can go right to Angela Two Stars' website and learn more about her and her art. And then this is a view from the top down to see the sidewalk stamp on the left, and more of her sculpture on the right, where she has this in core 10 steel. She's made kind of the Mississippi River, and with native grasses behind it. So I think it's quite beautiful. And then we have a wonderful artist, Adonis Rose Green, and we have, John, do you mind handing out those postcards now? We have postcards for everybody. It's an image by Adonis, and I think it's a really beautiful image of loons. So we brought one of those for everybody. Yeah, no, the postcard, nope, yep, thank you so much. Just pass those out if you don't mind. Take one home, send them to a friend. But these are some of the images that we have in each elevator lobby. On each floor, we have 2 or 3 of these images. And Adonis focuses on nature photography, and it's just beautiful. Images that are important to American Indians. And they're just beautiful. Buffaloes, eagles, wild rice. And here's one of the elevator lobbies. When you get off the elevator, it's the first thing you see, the beautiful photography. And then we worked with Gordon Coons, who's a Chippewa Indian, and he created this art, and it talks about the transformation of sort of a warrior and the strength and courage that they develop over time, working with the spirit and their ancestors. And we thought that worked really well with a fitness center. So that's in our fitness center. And there's the fitness center with the art on the left. And Gordon's an amazing artist that you might see around town. This is another artist who was a photographer, and we've got some of his beautiful, he's a Cree, and beautiful photography. And then Brian is Chippewa as well. We have some of his artwork in our building. Here's the landscaping with some of the signage around the building. And we also have all the art and our landscaping and the language on our website for the apartment building. So as people are looking at the building, considering if they want to live there, they can see the culture as they're looking. And then we had a wonderful opening that John and 4 or 5 other Plymouth members came to when we opened the building, and we had American Indian drummers. Shishoka helped orchestrate all of this, the drummers and dancers and singers. And we really celebrated the culture and the partnership. And we hope to continue to do more events like that to share the culture with the residents. Just a few images for you. I should have probably had a video, but I'll just have the images at this point. And Shoshone has offered to do a Plymouth Church Sacred Sites tour. So some of you have already done it, but different sacred sites tours by different tour leaders, you'll learn more. So we'll find a great date in the spring, I think, in May when it gets nice. And if you could sign up so we know you're interested, we'll keep you informed, and we'll certainly advertise it in church. But that would be really fun what a privilege to have Shoshone leading that in May. So I think that'd be a great follow-up to today. And we want to make sure we had plenty of time for questions and answers, but that's kind of a quick overview of how we came about doing our project.
Just to add in here, why we did this grand opening. I know usually you probably do grand openings for the buildings all the time, but we wanted to do something special for this because we're using this Dakota name, and so we came up with this idea of bringing the drum group and the dancers and showing that we're using the Native community here to collaborate, and it was a beautiful thing. And we used this MC, his name was Barry Han, and he's in there too, and one of the pictures in the back, but you at Bidet Makaska, yeah. And just involving the community in the whole process, and I think that was beautiful because these buildings are going up all the time, and Jeff and his partners, they approached us and they allowed us to be part of this project, and we were very grateful. Thank you.
Just a couple more thoughts that you're reminding me of. When we started talking, Shoshone made it clear that there will be some people probably who are against this in the community. And it's very hard in any community, as we know at Plymouth, to get consensus. So we were aware of that. And when we reached out to one artist who said, well, is this housing for my people? And we said, we would love to have your people, but it's a market rate housing, so we have a Fair Housing Act. It's open to all. And so she wasn't comfortable because she thought the rents might be too high for her people, even though we do have, it's fairly accessible pricing, and we do have 8% affordable housing, that's 60% of the area median income. So we didn't have any vocal opposition, but we had some people who were not comfortable participating. And Angela Two Stars actually said, when this came up, she said, well, look, I'm an artist. I'm happy to have my art wherever people want it. I might, I don't have to have every aspect of a project to be all for Dakota people for me to be part of it. So there are different viewpoints in the community, as you can imagine. And the other thing is, when we started talking to our marketing team about this idea of working with the Dakota, we had two of the top marketing companies in town strongly against it. They said, this is too risky. We've seen this tried before, and we worked on, one of the teams that worked on a project, and it didn't go well. Activists online were totally against the project, and they had to, at the last second, change the name and the website and everything else. And we thought about that, and we said, well, we're going to do this anyway, because if we're doing authentic partnership and where we're not out front, we're trying to allow other people to go up front, or at least stand side by side. We can be criticized, but we can learn from that too. And if we just do the status quo, then we won't change. And we can't, as you know, if you saw Seeing White podcast, right? Systemic racism happened because of decisions. It happened because people made decisions that created systemic racism. And it can only change if you make conscious decisions to change it. So we said, well, we're going to try things. We won't do it perfectly. We'll make mistakes. but we're going to try to do this and see what happens. And fortunately, so far, it's been a pretty positive experience. Our residents are very happy. I think it feels more like they feel like they're in a building that appreciates the history and recognizes the whole community. And at the opening, Angela Two Stars, who's speaking here, I'll never forget this. She said, you know, when I come to this building, I feel seen. I walk up and I see my language on the building, and I see American Indian artwork at the building, and I feel like I'm safe here. So to me, that was worth it, just for that one person, and to have my friendship with Shishoka. And hopefully it encourages others to try things, because I think that's what we have to do. Any questions or discussion? We'd love to respond. Yes.
My grandfather came, namesake grandfather, came from Norway in 1874 and moved to Wisconsin, etc. Can you briefly describe your background, your family, or whatever?
Me? Maybe they already know you.
The question was, can you briefly repeat your life story for us?
You want to know, like, my family heritage? Is that what you're asking? Okay. I'm Dakota, and but a lot of Dakota people intermarried with Euro settlers, so also part Norwegian myself, and French, and Scottish, and British too. So, well, you know, there's different ways of immigration to this country. So, yeah, that's just kind of briefly what I am.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued by. Here's the mic. Oh, okay. I'm intrigued by your neck piece. It's quite beautiful, and I'm sure it signifies something. I'd like to know more about that.
This my wife made this for me. So we have so just so you know, for Dakota people, I think it might be the same for Ojibwe, but whenever you see something like this, and you can't say I like it, because then they're obligated to give it to you. But I could get out of it by saying it's a gift. So, but just so you know, that's why you might not see a lot of our people saying, "Oh, I like that," because you know it's a cultural thing where we'd have to give it to you. Yeah, that's why I never compliment him. You might have to give me a bunch of stuff.
Shishoka, since you're a language guy, can you just give a little brief about, you know, you're talking about American Indians, about Dakota, about all the various terms that are used, and sometimes I know I think, well, is this one that's not appropriate, or is this appropriate, and what context? Because it seems like they're all over, and with your language, maybe you could give us a brief on that.
We had discussions about that ourselves.
What's the question?
What's the appropriate terminology for?
You know, at times it's about American Indians.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes people say natives and indigenous
Yeah.
peoples.
Okay.
All those different terms. What are there? Some that are, you know, really don't like. Some that are.
Well, we don't like redskin. So that's out. Yeah, I think, you know, as long as you're doing it from a place that's good, like from your heart in a good way, you know, most people are going to respond to that positively. Like Jeff said, there's always people who are going to take offense to things, but usually you could just ask, like, hey, what should I call you? But I think most people my age probably prefer American Indian. But, you know, a lot of people use like indigenous, but, you know, I guess it's as long as you're saying it in a good way. But, you know, you could call them by their tribal, name of their tribal peoples, Dakota. You know, they might be Ojibwe, Anishinaabe, or, you know, because we have words for ourselves in our own language, and I guess that's probably the best way to do it. Use the word of the language, because, you know, there's so many native peoples throughout North America. There's over 500 different native groups. And so to call all of them just one term is, you know, I mean, I guess it's like calling everybody from Europe Europeans, right? But there's like so many different groups there. And I'm sure the Germans wouldn't like to be called French, so, or vice versa. So, you know, use the name of the group of the people, probably the best, you know. That's what I would say.
And for those of you who weren't here, Shishoka presented in the fall about his more Dakota history and some of the nonprofits he's working with. So that recording is probably on the website if you want to see more about that.
Hi, I have a question about cultural appropriation. I've become more aware of that to a point where I wonder if I should wear Indian jewelry, of which I have quite a bit. And it seems to me that this project would be overlaid with that question. Could you both speak to that?
Well, I'll start, and that's what some of the concerns were at the beginning. And I think if they think that we're the people who thought we just wanted to put a Dakota name on the building and use it for marketing, and that's all, like that felt very cheap, kind of, right? Like not full of integrity. So the fact that we want to do a lot more than that, we wanted to make sure the values of the building included sustainability and respect for water and native landscaping, and that we had EV chargers, sustainability issues, and a green roof. And also that we brought in so much culture through the artists that we worked with in the building, and that we supported Dakota nonprofits in town, and will continue to advertise American Indian events around the Twin Cities with our residents, right? It's an ongoing issue. We'll have books. We'll have a Native American section of books in our coffee shop. The Saris Cafe is going to open in our building in December. So, you know, we're trying to incorporate the culture and the language in as many ways as we can without it being too overbearing, because it's still people's homes, right? 125 people live in the building, 125 apartments, so there's a little balance there. And maybe you can share your thoughts then too.
Well, cultural appropriation, sometimes I feel maybe we just have to realize that as Dakota people, we can't like control everything. And there's these apartment buildings, they're going up all over, and people need places to live. And so whether it had Dakota name or not, the building was going to go up. And that's the way I looked at it. And my thought is, why not have a Dakota name on this building? You know, maybe more places should, you know. And it would be an honor to see our language all over the Twin Cities. And there's already a lot of Dakota words you probably don't even know. So, and they did it in a good way. You know, they're not here to exclude the community. And you saw Jeff went all over, you know, trying to meet with people. And they involved us in the process of selecting the name, selecting the artwork, using native vendors for the opening event. And I think in the welcome package for the residents, they use native vendors. So native people are allowed. Also, Jeff and his partner generously offered to allow me to become part owner of the building. And so I took them up on that opportunity. So I guess we do have one native owner, it's, our Dakota owner in the building. And so I think it's, involving the community and listening to them, and not everyone's going to agree, but like myself and Angela, we both involved in this project because we want to see more of this. We want to see more people like Jeff and his partners work with the Native community and see what we can do, different places throughout the Twin Cities. So I think, I'm appropriating white culture. I'm wearing white clothing. So I think, we just have to sometimes realize what the appropriation is, like for your jewelry, like Native artists made that to sell to everyone. They did, whoever sold it to you didn't have a problem selling it to you. So I don't see why you can't wear it. Go ahead and wear all your Native jewelry.
So what do you say instead of saying, I like it? When
Oh, it's a good thing to say is that looks good on you.
Say it again. What was the answer?
One more quick thought, though, I hear about the appropriation. I think it's when people get upset is when you pretend to be a Native person. That's what bothers people. So if you say, oh, I'm going to wear this, and now they say, oh, I'm Dakota now. And, there's people who have done that. And they get caught, and it's very embarrassing, So, and I think it's kind of like, that's something that's from both of our cultures. Like, Dakota people, we believe, like, to be your true self. Find out what that is, the Creator gave you a purpose for being here on the earth, and you have to figure out what that is and then share that with the people. And I think that goes along probably with your Christian faith too, is like telling the truth, So if you say, well, I'm not Dakota, but I bought this jewelry and I love it, and I'm going to wear it, then I don't see a problem.
And I'll just add that Shishoka has found his purpose, and he's doing incredible things in his own community. And we're so lucky to have him here today and to have him as a continuing partner here at the church too, I think.
One more question?
Sure, final question.
All right. So I will say I really appreciate that as you've been talking, both of you keep revealing more things about the project that are very, very interesting. At first, is like, is it working with consultants? How does it turn into collaboration? I think you have been talking about the elements that make it more like collaboration, and this ownership piece I think is very significant. I'm curious for both of you whether you would look to partner on a real estate project in the future, and what does that really look like? What would you want to see, for each of you, for that to happen? Would it be ownership? Would it be consulting? What does collaboration mean?
Well, I'm always happy to work with anyone who wants to do things that make the earth a better place for everyone. So if Jeff and his partners wanted to do a different project together, and it benefits not just Dakota people, but makes the earth better for all people and gives the people that opportunity, then I'm more than happy to work with them.
I would just say that we raised money from investors for this project, and a lot of real estate investment is people like me, white men, who get money from their golf friends, right? They're other white men. So we consciously went out and offered our offering memorandum to people of color and women. And I had 4 or 5 women friends of mine in real estate who said, thank you for sending this offering memorandum. I've never seen one before. I've been working in real estate for 30 years. And I'm like, how is it possible you haven't seen one of these investments before? And so they were sharing it with all their friends, all their women friends in real estate, bankers and attorneys and title company people, brokers. So I was stunned by that. So that's just doubled our efforts to get a diverse investor base. And same in the in the black community. We have, I think about 10% of our investors are black. That's very unusual and shouldn't be. And I think it won't be in the future, but because other people are seeing that we're doing that, like, oh, they want to invest too? We're happy to have their money too. So it's like, great. And we really wanted American Indian investors in this project, and we were so happy to have Shishoka. We offered it to others, but the timing was a little tight too. So because the project had already started when this sort of happened. Our partnership didn't happen before the project. It happened in the middle of it. So timing was a little bit of an issue, but we'll keep working on that. And when he was at the U, we were talking about trying to buy a house that could be a Dakota language house. And that's where our skills can come together, right? And we haven't been working on that lately, and now he's not at the U, but there are things like that. He works with a land back group, right? And that's real estate. So I'm sure there are ways we can interact. And we continue to meet and talk, and collaboration comes from meeting with friends, coming up with ideas, and I know we'll do more things together.
Real quickly, I put some information over there. There's one pamphlet that is our land back group. On the back is our website, if you want to take a picture of it before you leave. We do accept donations to help us buy land to make sustainable housing. So just wanted to give that plug.
Great. Thank you very much. Could we have a hand for our presenters, please? Well, unfortunately, we don't have enough copies for everybody who asked good questions. Just very quickly, next week we have actually 2 weeks of presentations from the people who led the trip to Israel and Palestine, and so please come back next week for exciting presentations coming up. Thanks again.